Welcome to the Big Picture Retirement Show, where you'll learn what it really takes to have a successful retirement. With over 20 years of experience, your host, Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has seen it all and is here to help you achieve your retirement dreams. This is the Big Picture Retirement Show.
Welcome into the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. I'm Mark Elliott. Glad you're with us. Rick is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has over 20 years experience in the financial industry. You can always go to the website to learn more, find out about upcoming events, find out more about the team, where the offices are, safeguardinvestment.com, safeguardinvestment.com. Questions, concerns, boy, can we retire? Do we have enough? Are we going to be okay? 800-700-1980, and there's no cost for this. That's why I think it's such an important opportunity for you to get some clarity into your retirement picture, is just have a phone call, 15, 20, 30-minute phone call with them and say, here's some of the questions and concerns I have. What do you think? And then you kind of just go from there, 800-700-1980. Hey, Rick, I got a quick question for you right out of the gate. 1988. Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis, opened in theaters across the U.S. Is that a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are one for one today. I like that.
Yep. Don't ask me anything harder than that, though.
Yeah. No, I got some other things we're going to talk about today for sure, but that was a little side note that I had that I thought was kind of interesting. Most people, I think, at the end of the day, and I know you hear this from your clients, boy, I don't want to be a burden on the kids. I don't want to be forced to live with them. If things, health-wise go the wrong direction. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Here's some research from AARP on the state of caregiving in the U.S. More than 2/3 of voters are concerned that they won't have enough money to afford the care they might need. 65% are concerned they won't be able to live independently. 62% worry about becoming a burden on their family. 56% worry they will not have a family member to care for them as they age. Do you find that as a concern to your clients?
Oh, 100%. We have a lot of people that come and see us every day. And when we're, going over, their overall picture, we always ask, questions regarding, their goals moving forward, their objectives, what's most important to them. And I have to tell you that those statistics seem about right from what I'm seeing. At least, I'm probably being conservative, at least 50%, it's probably even more than that, of the people that I talk to, long-term care is a big concern, especially since, they've seen maybe their parents go through it. They've seen family members or friends go through it. And one of the biggest concerns is, they don't want to be a burden to the children. And of course, we know that, those costs can run very high and you can go through savings very quickly. So yeah, huge concern with many of the people that we're seeing today.
And it makes sense. My mom is 87. So she went from her home to unassisted living for a year and then went into assisted living. And it went from like $3,000 a month to $9,000 a month. I mean, that's a pretty significant change in the cost for her. And she didn't want to move in with me or her daughter. I mean, it's like they got, we have our own lives to a degree. And she was real independent. So it's a real challenging time for them, I think, when they get to that point, because loneliness becomes a super factor. I wonder, when you have your client get-togethers at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, I would think sometimes they become friends with others that maybe kind of helps them in this retirement world, maybe?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Again, it's one of those scenarios where, the older we get, as we go through these different phases of life, we're going to be experiencing different things, and reality, unfortunately, hits us in the face because we start losing friends. We start losing family members. Health, in some cases start to decline, and now we're starting to need care. And, these are all things that, a lot of us want to procrastinate, addressing. But, unfortunately, the realities of life are going to hit us, and without a plan, without a strategy.
And we're going to talk about that for sure. We're going to talk about that, strategies that you come up with your clients. But do you have clients right now that have been dealing with, because we're in that sandwich generation where we have aging parents and we have adult kids, and we kind of end up helping both ends of that spectrum to a degree. Do you have clients that are caregivers right now, that have talked about it, or you certainly have seen it in your 20 years plus in the financial world?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I had a gentleman that just came in today. He retired specifically to be able to take care of his parents. Now, fortunately, he was able to do that. He had the luxury to be able to do it because he had, he was close to retirement anyway. He just decided to retire a little earlier so he could take care of his parents. But I've seen plenty scenarios where maybe one spouse allows the other spouse to stop working so they can take care of family members, and then of course that can have an effect on their own retirement or their own goals moving forward. I did it with my own wife. I remember when my mom was sick, and she, when I say sick, she actually had like sciatica, and she had back issues, and she needed actual care, and it was getting to be too much for me because I was working full time. Then I was trying to take care of her. At that time, I was even getting my master's. So I had all this stuff going on. My wife was working retail, and it got to the point where, I just couldn't do it all. So I literally retired her, and I said, hey, listen, let me focus on work and building the business. And, you take care of all the heavy lifting when it comes to my mom and when it comes to the household stuff. So I can focus on one area, and then she can focus on the other. So yeah, I have clients that I see that do this all the time, and it happened in my own scenario as well.
Yeah, because that affects your wife's Social Security. It affects her income, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the challenge when you think about that. 70% of us will need some form of long-term care is what the numbers say. Doesn't mean you're going into a facility. That's not what it means. But 70% of us will need help around our house. We'll need help getting up and down, and maybe we move from a two-story home to a ranch style, whatever it is. Things will change a little bit, and it's all about having a plan. We certainly hope for the best, but Rick and the team at Safeguard will help you plan for the worst just in case. 800-700-1980 is the number. It's one of the things that nobody really wants to think about, long-term care type situations. Doesn't mean you're in a nursing home or a unassisted or assisted living facility. But we have not seen, Rick, I don't believe we've seen any of these retirement communities getting smaller. They just seem to get bigger. 800-700-1980, because this is a big topic. How I don't know. You probably don't. People come in for the first meeting. You're not going to go, "Hey, what do you think about long-term care planning?" You don't start there, do you?
Know what? It's funny that you asked it. We do. We actually ask that question because when we're putting plans together, we because sometimes people don't even think about it, but at least it creates the conversation. Because when we sit down with people, we'll specifically ask them, when it comes to long-term care and long-term care planning, what is your thoughts on that? Is that even a concern of yours? And then it stimulates conversation. We let them know, listen, when I talk about long-term care planning, I'm not necessarily talking about long-term care insurance. What I'm talking, I have some clients that are like, hey, listen, Rick, I know in your workshops, you talk about 5 or 6 different ways in which this can be handled. And, I've seen my parents go through it. I want to know what my options are and what's the best way for me to address it. And then quite frankly, I have some clients that say, Rick, you know what? Honestly, I could care less about that. I'm not worried about that at all. My kid will take care of me, or I'm going to move to the Philippines, or whatever their scenario is. But it's good for us to know that. So when we're creating a plan for clients, we're talking about things that are important to them rather than a bunch of things they could care less about.
Yeah, and it makes sense. That's really where it all starts when you call that number and you talk with Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, 800-700-1980. It is about you. It is about what you want out of retirement. What's your go-to plan? What are you hoping to be able to do? What do you dream about doing and your retirement to be like when you get to that point? 800-700-1980. And there is no question that women typically, and we know that's not 100%, but most of the time women will outlive men, right? So a husband and wife, and if they're the same age, typically the husband will pass 6 years before. Now, if there's an age difference, you've got to add in years to that. So that is part of the challenge you have when you sit down with couples, is talking about, okay, well, we're gonna knock you off, husband, and let's see how that affects the wife's living situation. And you're going to do the opposite too. You're going to pass away the wife and then say, okay, well, how does this affect the husband? Because there are differing, I think, results in some situations. Would that be fair to say?
Well, yeah, that opens up a whole can of worms. Number one, if one spouse needs to be taken care of, are we going to spend down these assets to a point where now, the surviving spouse, the at-home spouse, is going to be, I don't want to say destitute, but in a bad spot. because of the costs involved. The other thing that this runs into here is, many times I'll have clients tell me, oh, well, you know what, if something happens, we'll just take care of each other. And you may have good intentions, and the woman might say, hey, look, you know what, I'll take care of my husband, whatever care he needs. But let's face it, if it gets to the point where, you need to be able to move him physically, a lot of times they don't have that strength, or they're going to damage their own health trying to do that, taking care of somebody full time. So it's a scenario where we need to be realistic and make sure that we don't get caught by surprise. Your intentions may be good. You want to take care of each other, but that may not be realistic depending upon what the health issue is.
Yeah, and I remember my mom in her last year at her home with her live-in boyfriend at 83. I think she was 85 and he was 86, so it was a couple of years ago. And he would fall down or something. She could not get him up. I mean, it was not physically possible for her to do that. So this is something you have to think. It's part of the big picture blueprint. It's about income. It's about investment strategies. It's about tax planning in the future, certainly, and today. But it's also about healthcare and long-term care, legacy planning, Social Security decisions, Medicare decisions. If you'd like to talk with Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, you certainly can. There's no cost. They don't know if they can help you until you reach out. Maybe you've already won the game. You don't even need them. That would be great to know, though, wouldn't it? Maybe there are some areas, and Rick always says, give him 45 minutes, and he'll give you 2 ideas that will enhance whatever it is you are currently doing. That would be beneficial as well. Maybe you'll end up being a client of Safeguard. That could be greatly beneficial. But neither of you know at this point because you haven't had a conversation. This is your chance. 800-700-1980. No cost whatsoever to chat with Rick and the team at Safeguard. 800-700-1980. Back with more of the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group right after this.
You're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. For more information about Rick and the Safeguard Investment Advisory Group team, go to safeguardinvestment.com. While you're there, you can also download educational retirement guides and sign up for an upcoming seminar. That's safeguardinvestment.com. Now, back to the podcast.
Welcome back to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. Rick is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. Again, you can always learn more about Rick and the team, safeguardinvestment.com. They put on a lot of seminar-type situations. Maybe it's long-term care that we're talking about today, but maybe it's about investments. Maybe it's about income. Where's it going to come from? Maybe it's about taxes. A lot of planning goes into retirement because you're looking at a 20, 30-plus year retirement. You want to make sure your money's going to last that long, or you're in a good spot to retire. Safeguardinvestment.com to find out about those upcoming events. 800-700-1980 if you have questions or concerns. 800-700-1980. There's no cost to get that clarity into your retirement picture by just a phone call. No cost. Well worth your time, I think. 800-700-1980. I'm Mark Elliott. Glad you're with us. We're talking about a topic that people don't really like to talk about, and that is needing long-term care. 70% of us will need some form of long-term care. And here's a stat, Rick, that I don't think anybody would question. AARP says most caregivers in the U.S. are women, and you talked about your mom, that your wife, you said, okay, you're going to retire because you need to help me take care of my mom. I'm growing our business. And so women tend to outlive men as well. So how does that factor into your planning, your big picture blueprint that you go through with your clients?
Basically, if that's going to occur, I think you mentioned it earlier, which even happened with my own wife, is that if they're not working, obviously they're not contributing to Social Security, they're not contributing to their 401k. So all that is going to be minimized down the road. Now, if you're in a situation where, for example, with my wife, she was working a retail job, so it wasn't like she was making, $250,000 a year, so it made more sense for me to build my side, and let her make us more efficient by being at home, taking care of my mom and all the rest of it. So that worked out to be more efficient for us. But I've seen scenarios with clients where they have made sacrifices in order to take care of parents or family members, and they've literally sacrificed or significantly, I don't want to use the word damage, let's say hindered their own retirement. So, you can't, let's face it, we love our family members, we love our parents. It's a scenario where, you have good intentions, but you have to be realistic as far as the help that you'll be able to give. Am I going to sacrifice everything I have in order to take care of this individual? And especially when you start researching things, there is help out there. And I know that when I was, when it came to my mom, one of the things, they had a great social worker at the hospital that introduced me to in-home supportive services. So now for me to pay out of pocket for my mom, it would have cost me like $3,000 a month for this, to have a lady come in and, a few days a week to help her out. Now, based on my mom's situation, because she only had Social Security, she didn't have a lot of assets, she could qualify for in-home supportive services, which, saved me a lot of money. But again, it's a scenario where if you're thinking about this, regardless what your situation is, whether you're the man, whether you're the woman, and you want to help out other family members, or you're just concerned about it, I think it's a good idea. You sit down with someone, let them share with you different options, different strategies you may be able to use in order to address these concerns. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, that you have to go and buy long-term care insurance. Some people are in a position where they can self-insure. Other people, there's programs out there. One of the downsides of long-term care insurance is that, once you put the money into it, if you don't ever use it, you don't get the money back. But there are other programs where you can do that. I've even seen, I had a client in San Diego that her mom had dementia, and, she actually did a reverse mortgage on the house. And she didn't want the mom to go to a facility. She wanted her to stay in the home. So she actually put a reverse mortgage on the mom's house, and she used that money to hire 2 caregivers to stay in the home and live with her until she passed on. So there's a variety of things that one can at least consider or do in order to address that particular issue.
And I think that's a great point. At the end of the day, it is about your situation. How can you make sure that your retirement will be okay while helping others if needed? And it's about finding the options. This is a classic, what you don't know, you don't know. And it's certainly an opportunity to talk with Rick about those options that are out there that you may not be aware of, because this is a trying time. If you have a parent that's going through something like dementia and you're trying to figure out, all right, how in the world do I help them? And maybe you could do the reverse mortgage. I don't know. Rick doesn't know that either until you talk with him. But the idea is, what you don't know, you don't know. It's an opportunity for you to find out and get some, I think, real insight into your situation and how maybe what some of those options would be. 800-700-1980. 800-700-1980. Again, no cost for this. And we know long-term care is not a no-cost problem. It certainly is not. You think about it, Rick, because it's not unusual if, let's say Grandma and Grandpa, right, been married for 50 years. Grandpa gets sick. We know Grandma's going to do everything she can to make him as comfortable as possible until it's the end, with no regard to herself. That's where the planning really comes in, so that people don't end up destitute. Because I think the AARP will have stats that, 60% of the over 65 age group that is destitute are women because of that kind of a situation where they did everything they could for their husband with no regard for themselves.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? The other thing too, now that you're on that topic, that I forgot to mention is, let's say you have that scenario where, the wife does need to care for the husband or vice versa. And they don't want to leave the surviving spouse destitute. And maybe they don't have long-term care. Maybe they didn't have enough assets to truly self-insure. Well, we have an attorney that specializes in Medicare planning, or Medi-Cal planning in California, and where sometimes we can actually do unlimited transfers between husband and wife without any look-back period, move the assets into the well spouse's name, and then that way we can get the spouse that needs the long-term care, we can get them qualified for Medicare. So Medi-Cal, so Medi-Cal can start paying the bill for them. And now we don't leave at least the well spouse destitute financially. So there's all these different strategies. And again, we have an attorney that specializes in that can even be brought to the table, especially somebody that, again, like I said earlier, maybe they don't have the assets to self-insure, they don't have long-term care, maybe they can't do a reverse mortgage, or maybe they don't want to do a reverse mortgage. It's good to at least know your options And sometimes you can use a variety of different options together that actually might work good for you. It's not just using one. Maybe some people, they have long-term care insurance that covers them for X amount, and then they can self-insure for this other portion of it. And then maybe they have a reverse mortgage or do the Medi-Cal planning trust on this other portion of it. So it doesn't mean that one size fits all when it comes to this planning.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so important to sit down with you and your team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, because you do this day in and day out. And there are different scenarios, and we talked about the big picture blueprint: income, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy planning, Social Security decisions, Medicare decisions. You're really here to put that whole plan together, not just one aspect, but the whole plan for people, if that makes sense, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to whomever you're sitting down with. Where do you need some guidance? Are you going to be okay if that happens? I mean, really, it's about a conversation, is it not, when you start with these things?
Yeah, it's really just having a conversation and just letting you know, hey, here are some options. Here's a thought process that you can sink your teeth into and decide, hey, what's best for you and what's realistic for you in order to protect yourself from that if that is a concern. So, hey, if you have questions about any of these things, just call us directly, 800-700-1980. Again, our toll-free number is 800-700-1980. And we'll be more than happy to sit down with you and just go over a variety of different options that might actually work in your situation. So again, you're not caught by surprise. And, and on top of it, if you'd like to take advantage of a consultation with me, I can promise you that within 45 minutes, I've been doing this long enough, that I'll give you 2 ideas that will enhance whatever it is that you're doing, and it'll cost you nothing. So just give us a shot. Again, 800-700-1980. And I'd be happy to offer that to you.
Firm offers insurance services. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is a registered investment advisory firm. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC.